All right, everybody, I've got to do my usual mic test. I just want to make sure that you can hear me. Otherwise, it's not going to work if I'm speaking and nobody can hear me. All right. All right, everybody, I've got to do my usual mic test. I just want to make sure that you can hear me. Otherwise. Okay, now that I have confirmed that people can hear me and can see me as well, it's time to get started. Good afternoon and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how to attract IT or cybersecurity job offers that you can't refuse. You see, there are plenty of professionals looking for jobs right now. And I'm in touch with many professionals who are asking me for advice. What do they need to do? I also am in touch with professionals who have been laid off. But one of the things that I discovered is that the best of breed always has an offer waiting for them right around the corner. I have someone that I met, I'd say maybe 7, 8 years ago, at a job interview. Right? He made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, and later I made him an offer that he couldn't refuse, and I left the company and I heard back from him sometimes I would say early January, and he said he was laid off late December while he was on Christmas break. But a week later, I hit him up and said, "Hey, I have someone who asked me if I know someone who's qualified for a position." And he said, "Oh, I've already found something, and thanks for thinking about me." You see, the thing is, there are plenty of people, or while there are plenty of professionals looking for jobs, there are also plenty of professionals who don't have a problem finding the job that they want. In fact, they're picking and choosing the best option for themselves. How do you make yourself one of these people? If you are out there and you're struggling to find a job, I have good news for you. The good news is that Experis, a manpower group which conducts IT and cybersecurity job research, they informed earlier in January that there are more jobs than there are IT professionals out there. There is Fortinet that publishes the security or the cybersecurity skills gap every year. Last year, they reported that there are hundreds of thousands of jobs. Experis earlier in January reported that there are over 200,000 IT or cybersecurity jobs that cannot be filled. So more jobs than there are IT and cybersecurity professionals. I read a CNN report that mentioned that there are about 800,000 jobs that are unfilled in the United States alone in IT and cybersecurity. So, how is it that there are more jobs than there are professionals, and there are professionals who are struggling to find a job? Well, I think I have the answer for you. What I think you need to focus on is focus on being believable. Whenever you see a job post out there, don't think, "Oh, there's a lot of money for me." Don't think about yourself. Think about the person who wrote the job description. Think about the reason why they wrote the job description. And you'll come to find out that the reason is that they have a problem. They don't just decide to publish job posts out there and spend the time, etc., etc. No, they do that because they have problems. Whenever you see a job post, think about, what problem do these people have? And do I have the solution for this problem? And when you finish to answer those two questions, ask yourself a third question. How can I make myself the most believable solution provider for them? How can I make myself the most believable problem solver for this problem? So job posts mean problems. And you, if you want to be hired for these jobs, you need to be the best problem solver for this particular job that you're applying for. So if you find yourself in a position where you're applying for jobs and you're going through interviews after interviews, and there's always this email that comes to you and says, "So we're sorry to inform you that we have chosen somebody else," it is likely that you're not making yourself as believable as you should. It's belief that gives you the job. And belief here, in my opinion, can be a bunch of things. It can mean trust. It can mean respect. It's not necessarily who you know. Who you know can help you because it puts you in a position where you are ultimately very, very highly believed. The higher your level of believability, the higher your chance of getting the offer. So if I recommend someone to a friend of mine, quite likely they're going to get that job because my friend trusts me, my friend believes me. And if I say this guy is capable, then they take this guy. And that is the precise reason why when the jobs are out there before they post them online, well, the employers at times they ask the people who are already working for the company, do you know someone who could be a good fit for this job? Do you know someone who's a good fit for this job? And if the internal staff recommend people, then they are likely to get the job before the job is even posted, because the internal employee is likely very highly believed. And if they put in some good words for this candidate, the employer is likely to take this candidate, right? As opposed to somebody else they have never heard about and they have no one to vouch for them, etc., etc. So how do you ultimately make yourself believed? How do you make them believe you so that they can choose you over everybody else? And understand that you are showing up whenever you apply for the job or whenever the job reaches out to you. They are looking for the most believable candidate. In the employer, in the mind of the employer, there's one thing that's going. There's one thing that the employer has going in their mind at all time is, I have a problem, and I need an expert to come and solve that problem. I have an IT problem. I have a cybersecurity problem, and I need IT people. I need cybersecurity people to come and solve this problem for me. But I also know that there is something that's worse than that. It is to hire the wrong people. Because if I hire the wrong people, they'll take the money and I will still have the problem. I will have now two problems. The problem I started with and now the money that I have lost. So I will not be able to solve the problem. So the employer is going to make sure that they try their best to not throw the money away. And we all do that. If you're hungry, you're looking for a restaurant to eat, you're going to go to a restaurant that you believe will satisfy your hunger. If your car has a problem, you're going to look for a mechanic that you believe will solve your car's problem. If you're sick, you're going to go to a doctor whom you believe is likely to solve your problem or to heal you, right? You're not going to just go to any doctor, because at the end you are worried that you're going to get worse if you go to the wrong doctor. And second, if you go and you spend your money there and you're still sick, then how are you going to pay for the next doctor? So you're careful. We're all doing it that way, right? We all have these mechanisms built in us to help us stay safe. It is the same thing for the employers, because they're humans just like you. So they have a problem. And those problems are so severe for the companies that the companies at times, they layer, right? They take a layered approach to the solution of this problem. And so they don't leave that in the hands of just one person. They put groups of people, right, to help them solve this problem. That's why they have HR, they have hiring managers, they have recruiters, they have people to conduct the interviews, and they have legal experts now to draft the contract, etc., etc. And then eventually they have other people who are going to conduct a background check. They're going to check your diploma, your certificates. They're going to call your university where you graduated, or even your high school where you graduated. They're going to contact your previous employers. They're going to do all of that because they're making sure that they're believing the right person. And someone says that it's there are two ends on that spectrum. On one end, you have people that are highly skilled, highly technically competent. And then on the other, you have people that are very good team players. Every employer dreams of finding that unicorn, the person who's very highly skilled and very, very highly collaborative. Highly skilled, highly collaborative, or highly trusted, these are the people that they're really looking for. But when they can't find both, and in most cases they know they're not going to find a top performer who is also the most collaborative person. Quite likely it's going to be someone who's an average performer and an average collaborative person. They're going to put up with it because that's the best they can find in that moment. You want to be the best that they can find in the moment. And regardless of how good you really are, it doesn't really matter if they don't trust that you are as good as you are presenting yourself to be. So first and foremost, folks, you need to be believable. It's not just for the job, it's for everything in life, even this live session that we're having here. The only reason why you're listening to me is because you perceive me to be believable. There are other people who could say things, and there are plenty of other people on the internet. You could do a Google search or YouTube search or whatever search, and you would find plenty of information. But you come to me because you believe that I have something, some experience that I can share with you that is very valuable. You see, you only hear because I'm believable, right? Now, I'm not saying that to say, to blow smoke or whatever, but I'm just saying to you that I've got to be believable. And I know I've got to be believable. What do I do to make myself believable? I put this whole thing together, right? I look sharp, and there are lights, and the lights can be turned off. I'm not going to look as believable as I look now, right? I could try that, but it would take me too long to turn them back on. And the camera, there is this camera here, there's this other camera here, there's this soundboard here, there's this monitor here, this monitor, there's even this other monitor here. It's a wheel monitor. You see that, folks? It has PRTG on top of it. There's plunk on the other side. You don't see that side, etc., etc. It's a whole setup put together to make you believe that this guy who's speaking to you is the best guy that you need to be listening to, right? There's no one else like this. Okay, so that's not being, I'd say, arrogant or whatever, but I'm just saying to you, if I show up here sloppy, right, and I'm speaking broken English or whatever, you can't understand what I'm saying. Of course, I know I speak with an accent. I come from Haiti. English is my fourth or my fifth language, but I've got to speak that stuff clearly enough for you to understand what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And you've got to be able to understand, and that's part of the believability. Okay, my hair's cut, everything's sharp. That's part of the believability. Let's stop with that right there. How do you make yourself believable when you're looking for an offer that you can't refuse? Number one, you provide fact. Understand that to be believed, you need to provide proof. To be believed, you need to provide proof. I should say that a third time. To be believed, you need to provide proof. And proof that you are the most believable person that they can find in this moment. Understand that them believing that you have the technical competency is not the end of the game. You have other hoops to jump through. You've got to go through the HR and pass the background check, the drug test. You've got to pass the other checks where they're going to check your credentials and call your references, right? And they sometimes even check your credit, check your social media profile. There are all of these things that you have to put together, and in the end, you've got to appear highly believable. So first, you start with fact. Because regardless of how sharp you are, regardless of how nice my studio could look, if I don't have this content that I'm giving you that is grounded on fact, it doesn't serve any purpose. There are plenty of other people with better studios, better look, better streaming platforms, etc., right? The content matters, the fact, the proof matters, right? And in my case, as I'm speaking to you here, you're going to believe me because I've been doing this thing for 15 years. I have worked for government officials. I can start to name. Someone told me, I don't flex enough. Okay, let me flex right now. Let's start to name some names, right? Office of Refugee Resettlement, Homeland Security, Department of Defense, Office of Department of Energy, and I can start to name the biggest IT company in the United States, Insight Enterprise, right? All in Seminole Tribe of Florida, Bang Energy Drink. I built their network. I was the architect at Seminole Tribe of Florida. I became the head of cybersecurity at Seminole Tribe of Florida, and so on and so forth, right? I have a master's degree. I can continue to name things, and all of these things, when you put them together, you say, holy cow, there must be something about this guy. He has really done that stuff, right? And now I can say those things. It is one thing to be able to say these things, but it's another to prove them. Anybody can say, oh, they have built the Bang Energy Drink network, but did they really? Anybody can say, oh, I was the network security architect for Seminole Tribe of Florida, securing the entire tribal operation. Did they really? Somebody else can say whatever they say. Oh, they have probably flown to the moon. Did they really? You see what I'm saying to you? It's got to be factual. At the end, the employer is going to check. Did what you say really add up. You see all of those flexing that I just did here? I have built and secured network for the Department of Defense, and for government entities that are building submarines, fighter jets. I have participated in covert operations with Homeland Security through Office of Refugee Resettlement, and so on and so forth. I cannot just say those things. I've got to be able to prove them. When you show up for the job, you cannot just say you have done those things. You've got to be able to prove them. Because they won't take your word for it. No one's going to take your word for it. They're going to check every word you say. And at some point I was working somewhere and I was hiring people. And some guy showed up and he professed to have had whatever. Not that we asked, but he thought it was necessary. And it was the smallest thing, in my opinion. A high school diploma. His high school diploma was fake. How would I know? I'm not HR. I'm the IT manager. So when the time comes, I made the offer, HR went and checked, and he had a fake high school diploma. He couldn't get the job. So the believability, being believable, doesn't just start with the way you look, the way you sound, what you put on paper, but it also ultimately ends with you going through the fact checks and passing them all. So folks, understand, to get the job, you need to be believed. You don't just have to be believed, you must be the most believable. You see, if there are 20 people who applied for the job, they're going to give it to the most believable person. And how do they believe that this person is the most believable? First, they rely on fact. And what kind of fact are we talking about here? Well, work experience is one of them. Having a convincing attitude and believing in what you're saying. Speaking eloquently. That doesn't mean you speak like Barack Obama or you speak like Shakespeare, but you speak with good grammar. This is something that tells the employer that you have taken some time to master the language that you're going to work in. Right? It doesn't mean that you speak without an accent or whatever. I speak with one of the strongest accents, but you can understand what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying to you? People associate speaking correctly with being intelligent. And the employer is looking for an intelligent person. They're not going to take everyone. That is the reason why there are more jobs than there are professionals to fill them. Because qualified professionals are rare, and you're going to be able to demonstrate that you are one of the most qualified professionals for this job. So, work experience. How do you make sure that you're believed and you're the most believable? Work experience, having a convincing attitude, and provide references, right? And speak convincingly. When you show up for the job interview, don't just say, "Oh, I'm showing up for an IT job interview or a cybersecurity job interview," and you have your hoodie and you're looking sloppy, your hair's not, your beard's not shaved if you have beard, or if you're a lady, your hair, your nail, all those things that people can judge you on, right? Because they don't know you. They have a very short period of time to make an impression on you and to decide that you're the most believable out of all of the other people who showed up, so that you are the one who's chosen. And when you are, they're going to make you an offer that you can't refuse. Now, you have heard probably that you can fake it until you make it. In IT, you can't fake it until you make it. And even if you were to be able to fake it, you shouldn't do that. And here's why. My friends, you're going to have problems and a lot of money. When you make it through in the technology field as a respected professional, there are two things you will not lack: problems and money. Now, when problems occur, you need to be able to solve them and solve them fast. That's why you shouldn't fake it. You think about if you showed up and you say, "Oh, I can build your network. I can defend your network." And then on day one, the network goes down. That happened to me. You remember how I told you that there was this guy who made me an offer I couldn't refuse at Bang Energy Drink, and that's how I started working for Bang Energy, and ultimately I built their network? Well, before I started working, there was a hurricane coming. So my onboarding process got delayed by a week. So instead of starting in 2 weeks, I started in 3 weeks, which was very good for me. I was building a dog house for my dog, And I was happy to build my doghouse, and that's due to a hurricane. That's why they delayed that process. But by the time I started, this whole team had already left. And there were some problems where some documents were not left behind because it was suddenly that they left. And I won't be able to go into the details. But on the third day, as I'm getting acquainted to the people and meeting, and plenty of people are new, the director and a lot of other people were new as well. It was a very fast growing company. Overnight, the company became a $1 billion company. And they had that small little network that was built 15 years ago, and that cost maybe $5,000. And suddenly they're selling for $1 billion. And so they're hiring fast, and they need a complex network. They're building manufacturing sites, et cetera, et cetera. And here I am, I'm getting acquainted to the people on the third day. And then the whole thing went down. You understand? Well, I was believed to be the most qualified candidate that showed up to the interviews. That's why they made me the offer. Now, I must remain believed or believable, right? So on the third day, the network goes down. And I am the person with the highest level of competency when it comes to network engineering, network security, cyber defense, and all of that. I am the person who's supposed to help the executives make sense of what's going on. How can we recover? And this happened around 5:30. I went to, I don't know, I think I went to the cafeteria or wherever. When I'm coming back to my desk, there was a guy waiting for me. That's the full story, right? And the guy said, "Oh, did you guys know that I lost internet?" You know, end users, that's how they speak. I said, "Oh, really? Let me go find out." That's an opportunity for me to learn a little more about the network. By the time I got to the guy's desk, he didn't have a problem anymore. So I'm going back to my desk. It's a huge room where the IT people are. And by the time I got to my desk, there was this project manager who sat right next to me. And she said, "Oh, I had internet problem." And as I'm checking her computer, suddenly the whole network started to go down, segment after segment. You understand? It's a 3-story building. And now we need to find the key, go into the MDF. And by the time I got there, I realized there's a cluster. That's the first time I saw the core switch. It's a cluster of a couple of old Dell switches. And that's the core. And the core is rebooting. I said, okay, the core is rebooting. I don't know, maybe, I don't know what happened to the core, but the core is rebooting. I can't do anything about it. Let's wait for it to reboot. And at that point, that's what I'm looking for. When the core came back, I can't reach the core on the IP, the management IP of the core. So I console into the core. And when I console into the core was empty, fresh, brand new. And to make matters worse, there's not a backup of the config. I'm on my third day, folks. I don't know where the backups are. And the people who knew, they're not here anymore. And what's worse, no access to the firewalls. A cluster of edge or internet firewalls, I can't access them. No one can access them. And it is at that point that I realized that I am going to go through my toughest test up to this point. And the manager stayed with me. I'm on the phone with the director. The manager put the director on the phone and for me to give a briefing of what I believe is happening. And I can't blame anything because I don't know what's happening. I explained to the director that I don't know what's happening. All I know so far is that the core is fresh, brand new. That means you have no network anymore. And I don't know what the config is. And the director says, what can we do? What's the likelihood of a very sharp guy with a PhD, etc., who worked for Walt Disney or something along those lines? And he asked me, and he speaks in this type of formal academic way, right? What's the probability of us recovering? And I said, probabilistically, it's going to be 60-40. He says, which one is the 40 that we're going to recover? I said, no, it's the 40 that we're not going to. We have 40% chance that we're going to recover and 60% chance that we will not recover. And long story short, I told him I need to get off the phone so I can get to work and do the best I can. And he says, okay, I'm going to dedicate other people to give me updates so you can concentrate on your work. By now, it's about 6:30 p.m. And I get to work, and somewhere around 4 a.m., I rebuilt the network from scratch. Okay, folks? Around 4:30 or so, the manager who stayed with me wrote the email and told me, can I proofread this email? I have the pleasure of informing you, Mr. Director, that with Jared's assistance, we built the network entirely. We now have a fully functioning network, etc., etc. This is a manufacturing site where they make the beverages, the Bang Energy Drink beverage. That's in Western Florida. And we're in the process of building this next level, state-of-the-art manufacturing site in Phoenix, Arizona. And so I'm not believed to that level yet at that point because I'm third day in. This is going to be a multi-million-dollar project. But I'm the only person who's capable of doing anything highly technical here. And here this happens. I pulled through. And from that point on, my friends, they handed me the key, right? Next thing I know, I'm being flown to Phoenix. I'm flown here and there, and I built a complex network with 29 different sites in 29 different geographical locations across the United States and Canada. So they made me the offer because I was believable. But they only kept me because I continued to be believable. So that brought me to the third and final point, that there are different levels of belief, and you're not believed forever. They might believe you to be capable of doing this, but not that. They might believe you to be here, but not there, right? So the level of believability that got you in will not be the one that keeps you in. And so you must maintain believability. And how do you do that? You prove yourself every day. You show up sharp. You show up on time. You deliver on your tasks on time or before time. You're polite. You're kind. You're enthusiastic. You show up to work excited. You're not grumpy, right? And you're ready to help people, right? You're never above everybody else, regardless of how respected you are in the institution. So I'll say this to you to conclude, folks. You need to focus on opportunities that match the core competencies that you have. You need to make sure that you're the most highly believed candidate among everybody that applies for this job. And for you to be able to make that true, you must focus on things that you really, really know. And for you to do that, you cannot focus on the money. You need to focus on the problem, not your problem, the employer's problem. Because you and the employer, both of you have problems, right? You need to focus on solving the employer's problem because the employer already knows that if you are the most believable candidate, for you to come to them, they must solve your problem. And what's your problem? You need probably the compensation. You probably need the position. You need the career growth, etc., etc. What is their problem? The problem is that they need this very highly competent person and highly ethical and highly collaborative person to come and work for them. So if you've solved the problem, they will make sure that they solve your problem in return. Don't listen to the people who say, oh, be selfish, think about yourself. If you do it that way, you're going to suffer because you're going to concentrate on all of your problems and not on their problems. As a result of that, you're going to miss the mark, which is to make sure that you have the competency to solve their problem. And so, to be able to do that very well, folks, you need to get hands-on experience, right? And that hands-on experience is what we're solving here. On April 1st, it's not going to be April Fool for us. We're going to start the next cohort of Magna Cyber Academy. Here's what's going to go down. We have a very huge pile of candidates, and we're going to give everyone the same opportunity. We have probably 600-700 people on the waiting list that are waiting for us to call them. We're not going to call them because it's too many people, right? Instead, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send a mass email to everybody who has been on the waiting list and say, if you are still interested in that, click on this link and pay this application fee, which would be $250, and then schedule a meeting directly with me. I'm going to have to vet everybody who's coming in. And the reason for that is because we're only going to take people who are likely to succeed. And for you to be accepted into the academy, you need to have at least 1 year of experience. Now, if you can't have that 1 year of experience, you won't be able to join our academy, but what you will be able to do is to be in our study group. The study group is a group that shows people how to take and pass the A+ certificate and find their first IT job. And we're going to guide you through that, inventory your personal skills, skills that you have acquired through fixing your own computer and so on and so forth, and helping you pass the A+ certificate, apply for jobs, and attract your first offer that you can't refuse. Start your first job, because the first job will be your training ground. And a year later, you can join our academy. When you join our academy, there will be 3 different disciplines that you can concentrate on. 1, network engineering and network security. 2, cloud engineering. And 3, cyber defense. Now, the 1 year of experience is to make sure that you have the minimum prerequisite to go into these. You're going to spend 5 months into these. 4 of these months, you're going to learn, right? And then the final month, you're going to deliver a project. But the first month, you're going to catch up. Any minimal strength that you're missing, we'll give them to you as prerequisite for you to focus on this program where you're going to spend 4 months concentrating on one thing. Folks, don't make the mistake of being super wide. If you're applying for a job, focus on one job. Don't be the guy who's looking for an IT, a networking job, a cloud job, a cybersecurity job, a help desk job, all kinds of jobs. You're not going to get it. You need to be targeted. And that means you focus on one thing. If you know networking, you focus on networking. You know Cisco networking, you focus on Cisco networking. You know Palo Alto, you focus on Palo Alto. You can't be Palo Alto, Fortinet, Checkpoint, SonicWall, Meraki, everything like that. No, because they're looking for someone who is the most believable. And you are more believable when you can concentrate on one thing, master the thing, and show up like nobody else can. I think that's it for me. I'll see you again tomorrow. We're going to continue to do that. I see people are sending a bunch of messages here, but I can't see them, guys. I wanted to see them on this screen, but I can't see them on this phone here. But nonetheless, if you ask questions, I'll answer them afterwards. This whole thing is not working the way it's supposed to work yet, but I want it to work so that all of the messages could come to me here, and I could reply to all of you on one screen. But I want to thank you for being here. It was a great session. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, for another live session like that. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet. You let me know. You take care. Bye-bye.